So a while ago, somebody asked me to talk about aging on the Bodhisattva Breakfast Corner talks. So aging is something that we're all doing, although it all happens to other people and not us, right? Okay, I'm still in my 20s with my whole life in front of me, having a lot more experience than I did, but now I can live my 20s all over with more experience. But sometimes the body doesn't quite feel like it did in the 20s. And thank goodness the mind is not like it was in the 20s either. But, you know, just this whole feeling of there's a solid me and somehow I just got stuck being young with my whole life in front of me, right? Isn't your whole life in front of you? Years and years and years of it, you know? And aging is really something that happens to other people. I was telling some of you that a man came to see me recently, and he was telling me, you know, about his family and his career, and you know, asking for advice and certain things. And I remember, you know, as I was talking to him, thinking, boy, you know, here's a man who's really old who is coming to the Dharma in his, you know, senior years. And then when we finished the discussion, I realized that he and I were from the same generation. He was 2 years older than me, which was really shocking because he was so old. I mean, when I was talking to him, I felt like, oh, I'm talking to one of my parents' friends. You know, he had the kind of life one of my parents' friends would have, and I was giving him advice, you know, according to that, not according to somebody who was my age or my generation. Yeah. So somehow there's this not so hidden denial of the fact that we're aging and that our lives are transient and impermanent. You know? And I remember in the teachings when I was in India and Nepal many years ago, they would say in the teachings that if you, you know, kind of went a few decades without a mirror and then happened to look in the mirror, you would probably die of shock the way you looked. And, you know, occasionally, even though I've had mirrors most of that whole time, I do look in the mirror and I say, well, how did I get to look so old so quickly? You know, it's like, you know, where did these wrinkles come from? You know, not to mention the gray hair. But then sometimes it's like, oh, well, I still look like I was 21. Ha, 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 ha. You know, the people around you don't think that. Yeah. And yesterday I was looking up an old friend, you know, to write an endorsement for the book I'm doing. And I Googled his name, and he's somebody who's 12 years younger than me. We were good friends in Dharamsala. And I found these pictures of him. He has a quite successful career now. I mean, he was just a student when I knew him. And a quite successful career. And he has gray hair. I was like, how did that happen to him? You know, because in my mind, he's still fixed. You know, I'm 12 years older than him, but he was 29 when I met him, so he's still 29 even though I'm 21. But he got gray hair somehow. I don't know how that happened. Yeah. So I think aging is kind of like this, you know. It's very much it creeps up on you, as they say it does, and you deny it most of the time. And then occasionally your body reminds you, you know, that you're not as young as you were. Because sometimes the change in the body is so slow that you don't notice it, you know, even though if you went from 21 to, you know, 60-something, overnight you'd notice it, but the decline was so slow you didn't notice it. And then even more than the body is sometimes reminding me that I'm old, is the mind reminding me. And what was I just talking about? And what was the name of the person that I was just telling you about? You know, and how long ago was that I knew him? You know, and especially I find it with names. I mean, I've always been bad with names, but now really bad, you know. And people whose names I know, I will sit there and go, and I'll sit there, and I heard somewhere that it's really good to sit until you actually remember it, if you can, which takes longer and longer. Sometimes I give up, and then it'll come to me later, you know. But that kind of a thing happens, you know. And also seeing that, but also seeing that I don't pay as much attention to names as I used to, okay? And also seeing that I don't remember things as well that I read, but also I also am aware that I don't read as closely now, because there's some kind of filter of, you know, I just want the main point and all the rest of this is too much detail, so I don't pay much attention to it. Just to get the main point, but then I can't remember the detail that I read later on, you know. So I'm thinking, you know, is this just because my memory's bad, or is it because at the beginning I'm just not paying attention, because after you're a certain age, it's like you have to choose what you're going to pay attention to and choose what you're going to remember, because you know, there's not so many megs or GBs of space left. I'm not sure what it is, you know. I try and watch that. Does anybody else find that happening? Yeah? And just skipping certain details just because I don't need that information. Whereas before, I would remember, you know, I would read it and I would remember it simply because I read it. And now it's like, well, just drop that because of otherwise too much clutter. Yeah? But I've always thought in this whole process that it's really important to age gracefully. So I'll talk about that tomorrow, if I can remember. Will you help me? Thank you.